Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. It's Jerry Miller. It's good to be with you on a Friday. Looking forward to this interview with the man, the myth, the legend that is Don Gathers. He's going to join us. We're just going to talk Charlottesville. We're going to talk current events. We're going to have a good time on today's program. This gentleman knows the city inside and out, and I'm excited to pick his brain and get to know our community a little bit more. Like I mentioned, leading up to the program, we're 31 days from what is arguably the most important election in Charlottesville, Virginia history, with 3 spots up for grabs and 4 candidates that legitimately have a shot. I think it's safe to say to win. I'm not knocking the 2 other independents that are on the ticket that are running, but I think it's going to come down to Bellamy Brown, Cena McGill, Michael Payne, Lloyd Snook. I think that's safe to say right there. Let's thank some of the folks that make the program possible. We'll give some love to Interstate Pest and Service Companies. This business started in 1969 with the first generation, Mr. Robert Wells. He used his personal truck to launch a company, and today this business is crushing it, absolutely crushing it. 4 generations of family, almost 100 employees, and a business footprint that is the entire Commonwealth of Virginia, Interstate Pest and Service Companies. We'll give some love to one of our favorite clients as well, Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. Dr. Wagner changing people's lives through chiropractic care, sports medicine, and physical therapy. Judah, you're the director. Please welcome Don Gathers to the show with the studio cam and the 2-shot. Good afternoon, Don.
Good afternoon, Jerry. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Thank you kindly for coming on the show.
Oh, no, thank you for inviting me. It's always good to be here with you.
I enjoy it as well. What is new with Don Gathers' life since the last time he's come on the program?
Wow. Just a wide plethora of things, many of which didn't make the news cycle.
Is that good or bad, right?
Well, that's absolutely wonderful.
That's wonderful. Good.
New grandbaby on the way. God bless us. That is due in November.
Nice.
I've been accepted into a fellowship with
Nice.
the Virginia Natural Resources Leadership Institute.
Nice.
Things are going exceedingly well at church, and just trying to follow God's will and His way, and do what He leads me to do.
Talk to us about the fellowship. Sounds exciting.
It is exciting. We've had our first session last week. We're trying to see the intersection of environmental issues and societal issues as well, and try to figure out how to do things best for not only our immediate community, but for the state of Virginia.
This is a perfect fellowship for what's transpiring in Charlottesville, Virginia on October 4th, 2019, right?
Absolutely, because there's so many different issues that need to be addressed that have been overlooked and omitted, that are related directly to the environment and to the community, and we just need to be much more attentive than we have been.
Raheem Shiflett, welcome to the program. James Watson, Bellamy Brown, Mark Wogman, Roger Voinze, Beth Humphrey, Brad Crowder, Keith Smith, just to name a few, watching the show right now. Give it a like and a share on any of the streams that you are watching. All right, open-ended question. You follow the news cycle as close as anyone. What topics are intriguing Don Gathers today? So many, right?
You want to go national or local?
Anywhere you want to go.
Well, nationally, of course, you know the situation that we face, that we all are facing and having to deal with in D.C.
Yes.
Of course, there was the trial of the young lady who entered the apartment incorrectly.
10 years, ridiculous.
I don't get it. I mean, people back during the change in the laws, the drug laws, were getting 10 years for each rock of crack cocaine that they had, and now you're talking 10 years for a murder. And that's absolutely what it was. So the imbalance in equity and sentencing still very much exists. Locally we've got an election coming up, both statewide and here locally in the community, and in many ways those elections can shape our future for years and years to come.
Criminal justice reform must happen.
Right.
We are following a lot of candidates, say Elliot Harding, say Waylon Ross, who's running for state senate in Petersburg, talk Sally Hudson. This is a hot topic across the board.
Absolutely.
Must
as
happen.
well it should be.
Right. Talk to me about that.
Well, there have just been so many inequities for years that it's going to take a while to try to balance off and try to correct. But we've got to take the first steps. And the first step would be, first of all, educate yourself about the candidates. Secondly, make sure that you vote. Mayor Daley in Chicago used to say, vote early, vote often. I don't think that's exactly legal, but if you can get away with it, so be it. No, I was just kidding.
Means get involved.
Yes, absolutely. And there's so many different ways to get involved, even beyond the voting structure. If you want to go out and door knock for a candidate, do that. If you want to contribute to a candidate, do that. If you just want to make phone calls for a candidate, do that. And if you just want to get out and get involved in various issues in the community, there's a place for everyone. But the thing is, people have got to get involved.
Which candidates are intriguing you and why on any level?
You're not going to do that to me.
Anywhere and why?
At this point, they all are very intriguing to me, and I'm very much still very open and willing to listen to what they have to say. I will tell you that the only one who I have openly endorsed in any election has been Michael Payne.
Right.
And that stems back to he and I had planned to run together.
I remember.
So he's the only one at this point that I have openly and vigorously endorsed in any way, and I continue to do so. He has the full weight of myself behind him, and I encourage others to share in that vision, because I do think that he has a very unique perspective on the needs and necessities of the city, and I think that he would be an incredible complement to city government. There are others that I am looking at and leaning towards, but I haven't necessarily made a firm commitment and decision to, and there are others who we haven't sat down and talked. They haven't asked for any sort of commitment or endorsement from me.
How do you characterize this Charlottesville City Council election?
Incredibly important. As I said earlier, it could shape the where we go as a community for years to come. I don't know exactly where this all may shake out, but this election, as you stated, could be the most election locally
the most
that
important
we've had in some time. Yeah. Excuse me. Even more so than the election following the terror that we experienced August a couple of years ago.
I agree 100%. Why so?
Well, we knew at that point that we needed to do something different. That what we had just was not working, and I think that the election of Nakai at that time, Mayor Walker at that time, I meant no disrespect, signaled a new coming, a different coming of age, and it was something that she breathed life into this community that was so sorely needed, especially at that time. She brought in some ideas and some transparency that we hadn't seen in a local government in some time, and in my opinion, she continues to do so, and I continue very much to support her and her platform.
This election, 3 spots up for grabs, 4 candidates, betting guy, sports guy, straight shooting guy, 4 that legitimately have a shot, right? To get this W, if you may, sports analogy. I totally agree with you. I mean, 3 spots on a 5-member council that, as you very intelligently put, will shape the next couple years of the city, and some topics that are paramount, whether it's transportation, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's improvement of schools, whether it's the West Main streetscape, the comprehensive plan, whether it's how we handle the A12 anniversaries moving forward. Talk to us about this. I mean, this is huge.
Well, let me make one correction.
Sure.
I said that I hadn't openly thrown my support behind any candidate other than Michael. I very much early on supported Sally Hudson, and I expect great things from her when she gets to Richmond. The issues that you touched on are hot button items: education, transportation, housing, both affordable housing and public housing, because in the public housing sector, they're going through some major renovations and upgrades that are much so sorely needed. The first housing units went up in 1965, and there haven't been any renovations done to them since then.
Which ones are they?
You're talking West Haven. The ones that are going to be worked on first are Crescent Halls, which is basically regarded as the senior facility here, and following that, immediately following that, South First Street, and the Crescent Hall's renovation is a $17 million project, and they're going to redo every one of the 105 apartments in that building, starting from the top down. It'll be uncomfortable for a while, probably, I can imagine, for the residents. I mean, anytime you have to move, it's, at least to me, it's uncomfortable. I hate that process. But what's expected and what's projected for them afterwards it looks incredible on paper.
Let's talk West Haven. Okay. So we talk about West Haven a lot, and we've talked with West Haven with folks that have been in West Haven long term. We've talked with West Haven with folks that are new to the neighborhood. It's a gentrifying neighborhood.
Right.
It's very different than what it was. Your thoughts on the future of West Haven and 10th and Page, the heart of the city?
That entire corridor is in need of attention. West Haven is the largest of the public housing communities in the area, and it seems so often that those residents get overlooked, for lack of a better term. I don't necessarily believe that that's intentional. It's just what happens sometimes. And there are agencies that are working very diligently to try to correct some of that, both through the local housing authority and FAR. And you know, there was big to do about some of the roofs that had been damaged from a storm and a tree falling into them.
I follow that.
Well, and let me tell you what the problem was with that. Many of the HUD regulations that are in place restricted the housing authority from whom they could hire to get that done. The larger contractors, because you're talking, it was probably a $40,000, $50,000 job. The larger contractors weren't really interested in that because it wasn't enough.
It's a small job.
Right. But the smaller contractors who were interested didn't have some of the HUD requirements, including Section 3 requirement. So that was a lot of the drawback and the holdup, just finding someone who was actually able to do the work and that met all the qualifications that HUD places on you. So, but that process it was begun, and you know, we're moving forward on that. But so many of the apartments over there are in disarray because they haven't been properly maintained. And I'm not faulting the housing authority for that. It's just
facts.
Yeah. Some of it is staffing issues. Some of it is monetary issue. Financially, the HUD funding has been cut dramatically under this current administration. So there's just a wealth of things that have caused it. But regardless of where we were, we've got to look at where we're going and where we are right now and take care of the people that are over there.
How about the impact from say like a psychological or emotional or mental standpoint of having these towers, like just apartment towers, condo towers, surrounding, engulfing, just like almost bombarding the West Haven community? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's got to have an impact right there.
Psychologically, I'm sure that it does. And I mean, let's face it, I can't imagine that anyone is actually in public housing because they want to be. Circumstances in life have driven them to that point, and we've got to make it as comfortable as we possibly can while they're there, and also be inventive and ingenious in ways to try to move people from that cycle into affordable housing so that they can feel good about themselves. And I think that too has been largely overlooked, and putting up these high dollar rent districts and towers, as you say, all around them that tend to tower over them and look down on them. That's just not a good feel. It's not a good look for the city either.
Do you think the candidates that are running, I'm going to throw this open-ended, you go anywhere you want, this topic of the affordable housing is dominating the news cycle, and it's on the top of every candidate's mind that's running for council. Michael Payne is an expert in this topic. That's safe to say. This is literally what he did professionally before running for council. How about how Cena McGill lives in the neighborhood? Bellamy Brown is actively trying to engage with the neighborhood.
Right.
Lloyd is door knocking in the neighborhood, trying to learn the neighborhood. Talk to us of how you've seen the candidates either rally or not rally around this.
Well, I have to truly think that they're all genuinely concerned because that's what they're saying about trying to fix some of the issues and address them as soon as possible. I think that from what I've seen and what I've heard, they're all very well versed and very well educated. And I don't want to omit Mr. John Hall and Mr. Paul Long, who Mr. Long is starting to gain some momentum. I know it's late, but he is very much knowledgeable of the area and the community and the needs of the city as well. And I really think that in their heart of hearts, each one of the candidate has, in their own way, methodologies that they hope would bring about change, positive change and progression. So it's just a matter of hearing them all out, letting them lay it all out on the table. I'm hoping that there'll be some other debates that will be coming up in forums so that the citizens can hear these things prior to the election, because I just can't stress how important it is to get out and vote and to make sure that you're educated as to what the candidates intend to do.
We're sports guys. We love strategy. We love talking X's and O's. You referee basketball. You know sports inside and out here. I'm going to do a sports analogy here. If you were talking X's and O's strategy playbook here, were you surprised, or it's just the nature of the beast, that coming out of the primary, the three candidates now on a common ticket, door knocking together? I mean, in the primary initially, there was a little... not conflict, a little friction, if you may, between Lloyd and Michael. That's safe to say.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then out of the primary, we have a clear cut. These are the three. Pinkston missed it by a hair on his goatee. Cena got in there. And now the three, a team.
And I think that's part of the...
Do you like that?
The two-party system, especially in local elections, is problematic at best. The Dems, well, we already know where we stand with the Republican Party, but the Dems, locally and nationally, I won't say are in a shambles, but there's so much work that needs to be done at this point. And on a national level, I'm fearful of what the the campaign leading up to the primaries is going to do to whatever candidate actually shakes out of that.
How so?
Well, they, by nature of the debates, they get on stage and they literally beat the crap out of each other. And, once those wounds are open, there's this tiger sitting over on the other side just waiting to pounce. The jaw smells blood in the water. So any opening that he sees or that is given to him, he's going to take it. And I guess that's the nature of the beast in politics, yeah. And I'm just hopeful that they'll be very careful about how much damage they may actually do and inflict upon each other leading up to that point.
Do we think Biden is the favorite at this point? He certainly has maybe the most name recognition, momentum, and traction. Interestingly, now his son is constantly in the news cycle. Yeah. I think that is undoubtedly a strategy that's being played and exploited and leveraged by Trump's administration. We're now learning all the history of his son's struggles with alcohol and drug abuse and stepping out on his wife and perhaps relationships with Ukraine.
Yeah.
I mean, your thoughts on all this?
I think as much as anything, it's a deflection.
Yeah.
Just something.
A distraction.
Yeah, a means to draw attention away from that dude in D.C.'s own problems. and he is the ultimate master of deflection.
He knows how to play the game.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's scary. I posted something the other day that I wouldn't at all be surprised if he didn't actually start a war somewhere just once these impeachment hearings actually get started, just to draw attention away. You want to talk about Hunter Biden stepping out on his wife? I don't know anything about that, but we know very much intentionally that the Donald has done that on several occasions. You want to talk about family problems? Well, we've heard the issues with his sons and his daughters. So, anything that he can do to draw attention away from his own cesspool of crap, I think he's going to do. And I guess, again, politically speaking, it makes sense, but I mean,
as it really comes to this,
yeah,
right.
As citizens, we get tired of it. It just drains you. It wears on you. Just the constant bickering and infighting, and it's not just political gamesmanship. I think that there's just a high level of hatred that's attached to it.
What trickle-down impact does it have on local elections?
For one thing, I think that it makes people leery of putting their names out there. So I think that we actually lose out on the prospect of some good people who could really serve communities well, just because they don't want to have to go and step through the minutia that's attached to it. But in a more broader circle, again, I don't think that the two-party system works on local elections. And that includes school board of supervisors, any of the individual seats that pop up. And especially here with the stronghold that the Democratic Party has had on on elections for so long. We've had the one independent, and going back before that, I guess the Rob Schilling,
Republican,
was the last of the non-Democratic candidates to actually hold seat. So I mean, we can see how it works, but there's got to be a change that comes about in mindset and in practice.
What have the Democrats not done well? Let's talk local level. We love Charlottesville. I have said this many times, and this is me saying this, okay? Mm-hmm. The Democratic Party, whether it's unwilling to evolve, or the Democratic Party, whether it's unwilling to listen, is doing a disjustice to so many, I feel like, in our community, certainly the African American community. Your analysis and assessment on that topic?
I think by and large, as a whole, the nationally and statewide and locally, the Democratic Party has taken minorities for granted. Knowing full well, especially in a locality like this, that they already have the votes. Again, the local election a couple of years ago, I think was an eye-opener for them. And the reality is that they have got to do a better job in reaching out and reaching the people that they claim to that they lay claim to wanting to serve, and wanting to help to evolve. There's a movement about, especially when you start to look at the individual independent candidates and the qualities of these individual candidates that are moving away from the Democratic Party, but not necessarily the Democratic Party ideals. But they just don't want the attachment of any letter, whether it's a D or an R, to their name, because they're independent and free thinkers.
Right.
And they want to be able to implement their own policies and practices without having the attachment or the stigma of that letter beside their name.
Yeah, the connotation that comes with the letter next to their name, because everyone wants to be either respected or identified or seen based on what's in their mind, and not what's associated with the party.
Right, and I think that that's important, even if you have that letter beside your name. You've got to do what's the will of the people and what's best for the people. And that's regardless of whatever party that you attach yourself to, or if you don't attach yourself to a particular party.
Heather Hill councilwoman, made the point, and we have a lot coming in. Jojo, I will get to your question. Jojo has a good question for you. Jojo Robertson. Mary Blake, welcome. Lauren, welcome. Dr. Alan Ropp, welcome. Karen Collins on Long Island, welcome. Two counselors watching right now. Heather Hill has made the point that at the local level, it shouldn't even be about party. It should be straight up about people. What do you think?
And I appreciate that. I certainly agree with her. I truly wish that the parties didn't get involved with local politics, other than to state what their brand and their platforms would be, and what they hope for from whoever the electees are. I think Heather has worked very hard and very diligently to try to not necessarily disassociate herself from the branding of the D's. I think that she's tried to prove that she's an independent thinker and that she wants what's best for the community. And she has her own way about going to get there. I don't think she has necessarily strictly aligned herself with any of the bonds on council one way or the other.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
What, her courage?
Yeah.
Because that's hard, and she's caught in a lot of SHIT because of it.
Yeah.
That's safe, right?
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. And, I told her specifically, I believe it was the first meeting that she was seated, that to just take a look and realize that she was going to, in many cases, be the swing vote.
The swing vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On council, and that people would be watching her, and as much as anything, as they watch the entire council, and that truly has been the case. We've seen lots of 3-2 votes, and in many instances, even 4-1 votes. But I have to. My faith tells me I have to believe that in their heart of hearts, each one of the individuals that are seated there are truly doing what they think is best.
Do we think that?
I have to make myself think that, because otherwise, what are we doing? What are we doing? That's folks are shouting for civility. We've got to become comfortable in being uncomfortable. Just looking at where we are, what we've been through, we might reach the level of civility at some point that everyone's calling for, or that many are calling for. But we've got to remain uncomfortable for a while, I believe.
Jojo Robertson, love the show. Don, if you had to guess, who do you think will be the next mayor of Charlottesville?
That's not fair, Jojo.
It's like Monday morning quarterbacking.
Yeah, this thing.
It's a good question in some ways.
It is.
It's a conversation topic.
It very much could develop into quite the food fight, I believe. And we talked earlier about popping popcorn and selling tickets. This could be a main event, especially if it plays out the way that it did a couple of years ago, very open and very publicly, in a council meeting as opposed to in closed session. And I truly hope that they will do that again, because I think that the citizens deserve it. I have no real insight as to
it comes down to that
who
third spot,
has a desire.
Doesn't it?
In many ways it does. I can
because as a betting, as just talking out loud here, based on, and I'm basing this on the metrics from the primary, basing it on the results from the primary. Payne, I think, is a clear-cut first of the three spots.
He's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
First ballot in this race, right?
Yeah,
okay.
I believe so.
I think Lloyd, who was in the 2 slot of the primary, and I'm going to straight up say this, and Lloyd's my neighbor, and I know Lloyd. I see Lloyd all the time. I think Lloyd still is in the 2 slot, but his edge in the 2 slot is not as significant as it once was, say, like March, April. The 3 slot, literally, I think, is up for grabs here.
Absolutely. And really, you put you can put Cena, you can put Lloyd, you can put Bellamy Brown all in a bag and just reach in, and that's just where we are. I'm not sure where it's going to shake out for the number 2 seat, as you said, or the number 3 seat.
So you think 2 seats up for grabs?
I really do. I do. With the way that you can see Bellamy Brown gaining momentum.
Seriously, based on the fundraising that just came out.
Yeah, absolutely. He has made himself a very viable opponent, and I truly think that he has a following behind him.
How do you characterize that following?
It's a mixed bag. It looks like it's on the outside looking in. It looks like it's many of the local longtime residents, and also many of the downtown money, if you will. So I'm not exactly sure where that'll end up. Cena still looks very good, and she's still saying all the right and appropriate things.
She's super approachable.
Absolutely,
Likeable.
Absolutely, and she's very very personable.
Personable,
yes.
yeah.
And Lloyd, like you say, he was firmly entrenched in that number 2 spot. So where they are right now, it's tough to call.
What did you make of the story of the donations that were coming in from Heather's husband and from Mike Signer to Bellamy's campaign?
Well, Heather's husband, I don't think should have been brought into it.
I agree. They're 2 different people, right?
Yeah, and I really think it would be best if families were left out of politics.
Well said.
Especially on the local level. They don't deserve it, and by and large, they're not the focal point, if you will. So I don't think that it's really necessary to bring in outside family members. If you want to talk about the individuals that have been elected to a position, fine. I'd say that they're fair game. But I don't think that it's appropriate to drag family members into local politics.
Were you surprised Mike made the donation?
Somewhat, yeah, because I really thought that if it amounts to monies that were left over from his war chest, his campaign chest, that he would have pushed it towards the Democratic candidates, if you will, if not individuals, at least towards the slate. But again, that's just me looking at it, and I imagine that unless there were some attachments made to those monies and some practices that were and requirements that were in place, he was free to do with it whatever he wanted to.
I love talking with you because you follow this so closely. You and I follow this we understand the importance. It's one of our passions. Mm-hmm. This is going to shape the city.
Absolutely.
How do you think it would have played out differently if Bellamy Brown had run as a Democrat? and I will say this. I was talking with some key members of the party, and prior to him making the announcement that he was going to run as an independent, members of the party sat with him and explained strategy, almost pleaded for him to run as a Democrat, not as an independent.
I'm intrigued as to how that would have shaken out, and where those the 3 candidates would be at this point if he had been on the Democratic ticket. It's rather interesting to think on, and I certainly don't have a prophecy one way or the other, but it's an intriguing thought as to where we would be right now had he chosen to do that. Again, that being said, he certainly has every right to run with whatever label or non-label that he chooses to. But I just want the people, the citizens, to look at each individual candidate and judge him or her on their merit.
Do we think, and I'm choosing this question carefully, I think everyone in Charlottesville followed the squabble between Mayor Walker and Mr. Brown on social. I'm not going to throw that to you. What I am going to throw to you is...
I intentionally made a point to stay out of that.
Right. So I'm going to throw this to you instead. Do the 5 individuals that are on council, do they have to like each other? I mean, respect each other? I mean, like, what's the dynamic there? What should the dynamic be?
Well, I mean, when you look at it, they're a family, and there are times in families that you don't like your siblings, so
Yeah.
to speak. I think that there's a certain level of respect that comes with, if not necessarily the individual, definitely the position. So you can respect the position that they may be in, or that they may be taking, or that they may be running for, without having to uphold the individual, so to speak. I have a T-shirt that says that plays into that very scenario. That says Jesus hates racism, and on the back it says, "But he loves the racist." So it's the ultimate hate the sin, love
It's
the
a good
sinner.
T-shirt.
So, and I think when you get in politics, it very much is that same family atmosphere. There are going to be times that you don't agree with each other and flat out don't like something that someone does or says, and you've got to figure out how to deal with it when those times arise.
And I'll throw this out there, and this is me saying this, not Don. I think if this election on November 5th, if the Democratic ticket gets the W, sweeps the spots, then you will have a voting bloc that is potentially Mayor Walker, Michael Payne, and Sina McGill, 3 people on a 5-member team, potentially voting in unison for the next couple years. If Mr. Brown gets one of the spots, and if Mr. Snook gets one of the spots, then you potentially have a voting bloc of Mrs. Hill, Mr. Brown, and Mr. Snook controlling the city for the next couple years. So this is it's important. What I'm going to throw to you is...
Well, let me say,
sure.
you know what's incredible about those 2 scenarios that you just laid out?
Have you thought about that?
Well, yeah, and the thing is, you spoke of a block that included Michael Payne, Sina McGill, and Lloyd Snook. You left out Heather, who ran as a Democrat. Mm-hmm. You included Mayor Walker, who ran as an independent.
Right.
And the exact same is true on the inverse, on the flip side
Touché.
of the other block.
Touche.
So that's where we are. And I think that's part of what makes this so intriguing and so very interesting. This particular election that we've got coming up.
I think that over the next couple years, whoever gets on there, what are the most important topics you want to see them focus on? And this is just a macro, broad concept.
Yeah, well, I mean, the same thing, and we keep hammering away at it. Affordable housing, the education system, prison reform, and the situation with ICE notifications. Excuse me. We still got to talk about infrastructure and transportation and how those two are married together. And you know, you eat an elephant one spoonful at a time. So it's a lot that you need to chew on, and we've just got to figure out strategic ways to attack each and every one of those particular items.
Amanda Terplowski, welcome to the show. Ray Jordan, welcome to the show. CVille Weekly, welcome to the show. Scott Bandy has a question for you. Don, what is your assessment of Paul Long's candidacy and chances?
I love Mr. Long. I truly very much admire and respect him. If you actually sit and listen to the debates and the forums that he's participated in, his answers make absolute sense. And the thing is that he just doesn't have the funding.
Why isn't he getting traction?
I think there's so much focus is placed on the other names, so to speak, that are out there, and again the attachment of the D to some of the candidates. That I mean, we've got to admit it. That's just beneficial to them. But Mr. Long's a lifelong resident. He's aware of where the city has been. He has a vision for where it needs to go. And I just really wish that people would just really pay attention, because I admire him. I really do.
If Bellamy Brown is able to get a W,
mm-hmm.
that would mean back-to-back elections that an independent gets a W.
Yeah.
How will that impact elections moving forward? Second part of the question, how does that impact the Democratic Party locally and its need to pivot or evolve?
I don't think it would be as much of a black eye to the local Dems as Mayor Walker's election was, because you're talking one seat out of 3 as opposed to 1 out of 2.
Good point.
I do think that it would be another moment of awakening for the party, and the necessity to try to look at least how to do things differently. I think that it would be an eye opener for the community as well. Mr. Brown was born and raised here, not necessarily a lifelong resident, because as I understand it, he left and came back. But you do have many lifelong residents who deserve and warrant attention. I really think that the Dems as a whole have the heart of the community in the forefront of their policies and practices and procedures. It's just the avenues that they've got to take to move that platform forward, and finding the right and viable candidates is important. You said that they reached out to Mr. Brown.
Multiple times.
Yeah, I can imagine that if they didn't, that they probably wished that they had done the same thing with Mayor Walker. These are some very vibrant people who really care genuinely about the community and the future of our city as a whole. And we need to do what we can individually to make sure that we, again, number one, vote, and number two, vote for who is truly the best candidate that you think will serve the community at large in the best interests.
Lisa Carini has a question for you. Mr. Gathers, I'm a lifelong resident here in Charlottesville. I'm also following the election closely like you guys. Do we need to change the model and have districts like we're seeing with the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors with the city council race?
We've talked about that before here on the show with you. And it's...
It's intriguing.
It is. And my only fear, the only drawback that potentially frightens me about that thought is
someone staying forever in the spot?
Yeah, well, the possibility of excluding the opportunity for minorities to get elected and onto council. Who draws the districts? How are they drawn? If done improperly, it can do a wealth of damage to the city. We've seen that on the state level, and trying to get that elephant out of the room, so to speak, it's painful. So if we move that way, we need to study it very carefully, look at other similar communities, both in size and structure, and make an educated determination from there. Much like we've talked about moving from a strong manager to a strong mayor, we just need to make sure as to what it is that, number one, we want to do, and check every possible and potential avenue about how to best get there.
How do you think the city manager's doing?
I think he's doing a great job. I like Mr. Richardson very much. He too has a vision, and
he's kind of been under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, but
strategically to get a feel for the city.
I think so. He's been meeting with community leaders and getting out into the community. He's checking the pulse, I think, almost on a daily basis, and I really think that he is committed to doing the work and even the tough work that's necessary to move us forward from where we were, from where we are, and to where we want to be.
Police Chief Brackney, in the news often. When you're in a position of influence and power and you're the number one position in your division or department, you're going to have positive and you're going to have negative. That's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on what she's got going on?
Right now, everybody, of course, is up in arms about the testimony that she gave to Congress. She was asked a very straightforward and pointed question, and she answered. Also, she was there representing African American law enforcement chiefs from across the country. She was not invited as the chief of police from Charlottesville. So the answer that she gave, I believe, was directly towards nationwide where we are and what we need to do.
Were you surprised with that answer?
I was, and things typically don't surprise me much anymore, but it was refreshing to hear someone in her position actually come forward and state that particular point. And I think as much as anything, she said any weapons, but of course the Second Amendment people immediately jumped on their AR-15s, their AK-47s. You know, just a few blocks down the street, we saw that just years ago. People openly walking around with those things slung on their shoulders. Yeah, and it just is amazing to me that in the same park that a child can go in to play, someone can be walking around with an AK-47.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, we've got to do a better job of getting people in place that will correct some of these wrongs that have been on the books for so long. And by wrongs, I mean statutes and laws that tend to hinder us and handcuff us in ways that we can't live everyday life in fear. We shouldn't have to.
Do we think that, what did you make of the news where UVA has got a new police chief? Interim. Tim Longo, African-American, steps down, resigns. Mm-hmm. Nothing is coming out about this.
That was kept so very much hush-hush.
Such of the DL.
Yeah, apparently something, he was placed on leave back in early September.
Right.
And no one knew it until late in September. And then the next thing that you hear is that he's resigning. I like Chief Sutton. I didn't know him personally well. Yeah. I had met him, and we had been in different settings together, and I liked what I saw of him. I can't imagine what in the world went on or is going on over there, but
you basically, do you feel like we deserve some transparency?
I think we do. The community has been pleading for that for forever now.
Right.
And I understand if it's a personnel issue that they can't discuss. Uh-huh. But
tell us.
Yeah, give us something. I wish Interim Chief Longo well.
Was he the right guy for it?
I think going into the situation, knowing that he's done some work with UVA and continues to work with UVA and some security aspects, and I think even trying to guide them through some things, I think that having someone who knows the community and who is familiar with the community is beneficial to them, especially to fill a void on a short-term basis. I don't know what their plans may be moving forward, but I'd have to think that putting someone immediately in that spot had to be the best thing for all involved.
You're basically saying, and I don't want to take any words from you. You're basically saying the back was against the wall. They needed to find a solution immediately, and here was somebody on staff that was previously a police chief. Mm-hmm. So we got to figure it out.
And again, someone who's familiar with the community, who knows the community, and who's already done and was continuing to do the work. I think that I'm just hopeful for him that he's successful and that the university can continue to move forward.
We often talk about the 3 spots that are up for grabs on council. We do not talk as much about the 3 that are leaving council, mm-hmm. and Councilwoman Kathy Galvin, Councilman Mike Signer, mm-hmm. and Dr. Wes Bellamy. Mm-hmm. I'm going to throw a totality question, a macro question to you, and then ask individually. The 3 that are leaving council, mm-hmm. as a group, their legacy.
Unfortunately, the stigma of August 12th will be attached to whatever legacy that they have. That's just inescapable. With Mike and with Wes especially so, because at the point that it happened, they were mayor and vice mayor. and it's just no way around that being attached to them moving forward. I don't think that the community as a whole has embraced what we're going to miss with specifically with Dr. Bellamy leaving, because he has done and tried to do so very much for the community, including the coat drives, the shoe drives, the turkey giveaways at the holidays.
The coding organization,
Yeah,
computer coding.
Yeah, absolutely. The pushing through of the formulation of the equity package. He has just done such a massive amount of work in such a short deal of time. I just don't think that we have embraced just how much we're going to miss having him here and the vision and the work that he put in. I certainly understand, absolutely understand. Your family is growing. You've got a new one that you just had, and congratulations on that. And all of the foolishness that he had to go through, I get it. I certainly get it. That has to leave a distaste in your mouth for wanting to continue to put yourself out there.
As someone who he trusts you, as someone who is respected, right? Mm-hmm. As someone who has vision, I'm talking about you, someone who has influence you, what is in store, do you think, for Dr. Bellamy down the road?
I'm hoping for some good things. I'm truly expecting him to resurface and reinvent himself somewhere. Whether it's here
you think in Richmond?
Possibly so. Possibly so. I can very much see that. And,
closer to his work?
Yeah. As department head down at Virginia State. So that was an incredible feather in the cap, and congratulations and kudos on that. And I really do still look forward to him doing some wonderful things. If not for this immediate community, for the state, I really think that there's a lot left in him that's yet untapped.
What did you make of Councilman Mike Signer's book endeavor? He's an author. He's got a book coming out on August 12th. Mm-hmm. He is catching some heat about this because whether justified or unjustified, it's not me to say it, he was the point of contact during August 12th. And in retrospect, and I think he would even say this, in retrospect, I'm sure there were some things that he wished he had done very, very differently. Now a book coming out on A12.
And I think that he has said that, looking back, there were some things that he could have or wished that he had handled differently. I believe that he said that. And he's getting the same amount and same level and same types of flack that Governor McAuliffe got when he wrote his book. Seemingly everybody is writing books about that fateful time, that fateful summer, that fateful weekend.
I think it's a strategy that they have to try to control their personal brand and their legacy as it's tied to A12. It's like them trying to write a narrative.
Well, I won't take that leap. I think that everyone who was directly involved has a story to tell, and they want to tell it in his or her own way. I haven't seen anything from anyone who immediately was right here, right on Market Street that day, that stood and looked the devil in the eye, so to speak. And that's the book that I'm intrigued as much as anything to actually see and to read.
Sounds like Don Gathers needs to write that book.
I wear many hats.
Because you were there.
I've got a big head, but writing is not one of them.
You were there.
Yeah.
You looked the devil in the eye.
Yeah, and I think that it's important that any time that hatred and oppression and blatant racism in that way rears its ugly head, that we each individually and collectively stand up and do what we need to shout it down.
You have filled an hour, and it's felt like 10 minutes. It's 1:30.
I had no idea I'd been here now. It's
1:30.
It's just easy coming here. First of all, the Greensbury coffee is always wonderful. Always happy to get that when I come. But it's just easy. It's easy being here and answering questions that are close to me and that
we care about.
Yeah, that I'm passionate about.
Final word, anywhere you want to go.
Once again, as you stated, the election's coming up in 31 days. I didn't realize it was
So close.
that soon.
Right.
So again, please, first and foremost, educate yourselves about the candidates, their platforms, and where they want to take the city. On the statewide level, make sure that you get out and learn about the candidates, and then vote. It is extremely important that you get out and vote. Make sure that you carry someone with you. If someone has trouble getting to the polls, get them out there. But this election can very much shape our future for years and years to come.
I'm really nervous that without a presidential election, that the turnout's not going to be great.
Typically, it is in off year elections, but.
I hope Charlottesville rises to the occasion.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot going on that will directly impact people, and they need to get out and make themselves or get themselves involved in this. There's just a dynamic synergy that's going on here in our community that it's.
I feel it.
Yeah, it's very palpable, and it's. Again, it's just interesting just watching it unfold.
You did so well. Thank you.
Always good to see you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Love having him on this program. Don Gathers, thank you so much for your time. We will take today's show and we will archive it on ilovecville.com. We'll take the audio and we'll turn it into an iTunes podcast so you can listen to your earbuds if you'd like to catch the show through your phone or through your Bluetooth on your car. We will take today's show and syndicate it for 30 days, which times up really well with the election across the I Love CVille network. 17 Facebook pages, 17 Twitter accounts, the third largest Instagram community in Charlottesville behind UVA and the city of CVille, and a daily e-newsletter that goes out to 108,000 plus inboxes every morning at 11 a.m. I try to close the show the same way with the same consistent message, and I ask everybody that's watching to please try to embody the golden rule. Treat your fellow man and your fellow woman like you want to be treated yourself. Guys, Charlottesville needs the golden rule more than ever. The Commonwealth, the country needs the golden rule more than ever. Enjoy your weekend. Have some fun. Support local. Be safe. Think about the golden rule in Charlottesville's future. Vote on November 5th. Take care. So easy. Seriously.
Always good.
So easy.
Always good.
Fair?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's
you.
why I like coming, because you're always fair.
Open-ended. Yeah. Thank you. We'll get one more thing. We'll get a photo here, and then we'll. Yes, sir.